national city and kind of the makeup of the city?
Sure. It's a city within San Diego County in California, and it's pretty small in nature. Actually, it's around 56,000. The city clerk's office. We have three people now in the office. When I started, it was one, and we hold 4 meetings per month. That's our regular meeting, and then we generally have 2 closed session meetings per month that we hold for our city council, and that doesn't include all of our other boards and commissions and other public meetings that we hold within the city. And then Ron, our IT manager, his department consists of 4 people. And the city overall, we have roughly around 400 employees.
And how many departments would you say that you have that are
8,
interacting with eScribe? Yeah. Okay.
9, something like that. Yeah, all of them. All of our departments are within the eScribe system. We have everyone on
Okay.
board.
Great. And we wanted to kind of go through what led you to looking for an agenda management system. Um, so if you want to run through maybe some of that for us in your own words, kind of what challenges you were facing with your previous way of doing things.
Sure. Ron, jump in here whenever you'd like. For me, it was a very labor intensive process coming on board like 4 years ago. We were using a partial electronic process, which was really just PDFing reports, but that also consisted of another software that was very antiquated. Nothing in the process was streamlined for efficiencies, and several different departments, staff members were involved in the process, but it was really piecemealed together. So it was very labor intensive for everyone.
Yeah, we had departments. Some departments had their own template for the actual staff report. So so it was the agenda will always look a little strange because you'll have a staff report that in a couple departments look the same, and then other departments slightly different. So that was actually one of the issues. Then the way the staff reports were routed were just manually. So you literally took the staff report from one from each department to the signatories to get the signed off. So where there was an issue was when it was a time sensitive item and something wasn't correct in the staff report, which meant you had to go back, change the staff report, then find the people who, who had to sign it off, and sometimes they would be in different buildings. So it was always a an interesting routine around
Mm.
agenda preparation time.
So two key things that you mentioned that come up a lot for customers, I think that um, they get pretty excited about when they come on to eScribe is just the actual chasing people down for information. There could be physical barriers. It could be, they're in a different location, is a huge one since everything is electronic and you're setting up kind of how they share permissions and what they can see,
Mhm.
especially for time sensitive stuff. And the other one you mentioned was the standardizing of the template. So correct me if I speak out of turn, but one of the things that a lot of customers is, and it doesn't matter how big the organization, but we do have some that have, you said you have 8, we have some that have, over a dozen, a couple of dozen departments. And planning, for example, is a very heavy, user in terms of
Mhm.
reports and so you may have one staff report or agenda item or cover page template for planning versus, corporate services versus public works. And so one of the benefits is that you can standardize and make sure everybody's using the most updated template for their
Yes.
request. And I think what it does for most, and Shelley, correct me if I'm wrong, is that means that you're not having to make those manual edits at the end. So you have a professional looking output for the public so that everything kind of looks the same, right?
That's very true. And we've had some staff changes in our city manager position this last year, and we've had to change that name on the staff report
Mm.
3 different times. And so it was easy to go in and just make the universal change on the template. Everyone used the same template, so the change was made automatically. We didn't have to go in and make sure that every document was changed. So it
And
was
you
a
can do that on your own, right? You don't need to open
yeah.
a support ticket for that. Or
Oh no, we can do that on our own.
the other thing I want to mention about that for anybody listening is also we all know that accessibility is top of mind for folks. So the other thing about the template is that you're in control. It's a Word document, right? Like, so most of our teams have an accessibility department or somebody that they can consult with to make sure that their documents are accessible. So as long as, you know, people are using the template you want them to use, and you've done the effort to make sure that that document they're using is accessible, you're also making sure that they're adhering to that as well, which is really important for most of our customers. So so that's another I think key point there. So maybe now Shelley and Ron, if you could talk to us about kind of when you were searching for a new vendor or a vendor, what were the key priorities for you
Well,
in terms of what
We
you were looking for?
go ahead, Ron.
cost, cost is always and an issue. So you always want to make sure the solution you're acquiring is affordable. But on top of that, there were things like workflows. Workflows were pretty important. I wanted to make sure people didn't have to chase down signatures anymore. And then in the event that a person in the workflow wasn't available, there were also backups you can put in the workflow. So the process wasn't hindered by people not being around. So that was a major issue. And another thing too was one of the things we had to deal with in the prior system, aside from the difficulty in changing templates, was you had to post these things to the website. After we created an agenda in the old system, it had to be exported as a PDF and then uploaded to the website. So the great thing about eScribe was all that stuff is handled within the system. You compile put the agenda together, get all the approvals, and when you're finally done, you just hit a button, and voila, it's published to a website. So
Literally hit a button. You're not even exaggerating. There's a button that says publish, and that's
It
what you
is.
click, right?
So nice.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And support also was a thing that you always have to consider too, because sometimes you'll take on a solution, and it might be a decent solution, but customer service is a big deal. And for me, as an IT person, it's a really big deal, because there's so many entities out there now that have terrible customer service. They have a decent product, but the customer service is terrible, and that's going to bite you when it's time to get the customer service, when the customer service is bad. The one thing I can say about eScribe is whenever we had to call them about anything, they were quick to respond and resolve whatever issues. It wasn't just a quick response; it was actually a quick resolution. So.
Yeah, we love our support team too. I mean, they help us even in our roles, but that is definitely consistently across the board. One thing we hear from our customers is how satisfied and impressed they are with support. And it actually makes us kind of feel grateful that we're part of eScribe, even when we hear, stories from customers coming from other systems, when they say, one of the main motivators for us was that we weren't getting the support or the help that we needed, when it was game time and we're trying to stream or we're trying to do something that's required for the public, or we're missing publishing deadlines because we can't get help. We kind of on the side here, when those meetings are over, kind of look at each other and go like, can you imagine? Like, we wouldn't have a job if we didn't respond and help our customers. This is what we pride ourselves in doing that. So I definitely think that helps us stand apart for sure. One other thing that I don't want to miss, Shelley, was just the time it took. You were finding also that the process prior, you touched on it quickly, it was taking a lot of time. It was sort of disjointed. So would you say that was another priority when you were looking, was just finding ways you were going to be able to save time, right?
Right, for sure. We were definitely looking for an agenda management, content management, and an efficient process that could streamline all of it from beginning to end. The agenda process, the whole life cycle, you would say, as a for an agenda. And having worked in other cities where we had similar products, I knew what the efficiencies would be. So, you know, if we could just find a really good software, we could save so much time. And so I was trying to, you know, really express that to staff that, you know, we've got something that we've got coming and it's going to be amazing. You're going to love this product, and it's going to streamline and save so much time. And in the beginning, you know, people are kind of like, okay, you know, because they don't know what it's going to look like on the end. But now, I mean, literally today, I got somebody made a comment to me again. It was like, we love eScribe. Thank you so much for bringing this to us. And I hear it all the time, and I'm sure Ron does too, because it's saved so much time and efficiencies for everyone.
I'm
It
one of
really
those.
is. It really
I'm one
is
of
a
those
good
people
product.
thinking eScribe, man, because it definitely saves a lot of time for me.
I
It really
know.
does. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not just, you know, oh, this is a great product. No, it really is a
Yeah.
great product.
Ron and
I've worked
Shelley
with
are
a
not
lot.
actors and paid
Not at
actors and
all.
actresses, by the way.
Yeah.
We have not given them anything to show up.
Not at
Um,
all.
so you just really are passionate about it.
We really are.
So can you walk us through, because a lot of folks who are joining us today are probably in a similar situation right now where they're kind of evaluating different vendors, kind of picking brains, talking to resources. Can you just walk us through what that was like for you, what that process was like for you a little bit?
Sure. The process because we're a government agency, we have to go out there and not only make sure that we find, you know, the best product for us, but we are also fiscally responsible to our constituents. And we usually have to use like an RFP process that goes out for bids. Thankfully, we were able to come in under, or we were able to piggyback onto a larger agreement with other agencies that streamlined the process for us. And you know, I had worked with other cities, neighboring cities that have already, you know, they were already customers of eScribe. So it was easy to get the buy-in for the product for, you know, our stakeholders, because we already have neighboring cities who were using the product, and we were able to piggyback onto their agreement. So it made it a little easier for us.
That's awesome. And even for anybody out there who, you know, maybe doesn't have immediate neighboring cities or school boards that are using eScribe, we have 3 implementation consultants. We have a whole team of customer success managers that have been with eScribe for quite a while. And so we can pretty easily find resources for people, you know, for pure eScribe users that usually are really happy to jump on a really informal call. Like we just make the introduction, then we stay uninvolved, and just say like, you know, here's a list of people who are happy to chat with you. So we can always connect you with folks too if you want to ask any questions. So can you maybe just explain why you chose eScribe versus, I mean, you've alluded to some of it already, but your deciding factors in choosing eScribe over any of the other vendors you were considering?
Ron, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the solution, it definitely was user friendly and very intuitive, and the price was right. I mean, it wasn't overly expensive, and like it's listed here's the process, the workflows and stuff fit in what we were trying to accomplish. So it was basically a no-brainer, and especially looking at what we had to deal with all the manual process of going to this type of system. It was really a no-brainer once we got into it and looked at the solution. So
yeah, I think the user-friendly and intuitive part, I started giggling a little bit over here when you said that, Ron, because I think at one point in the implementation, maybe I should have mentioned that I actually did the implementation for you all. There was a time period, I think, where you were ramping up for go live, and I was borderline professionally harassing you, like, how are you doing? What does everybody need? And at one point, Ron's like, what? We don't need anything. It's easy to use. It's like, we click a button, we train, we know what to do. But every customer has different, you know, comfort with using a new system. And so we like to make sure that we're giving, you know, we're hand-holding more if customers need it, or when someone says back off, we back off. So Ron didn't need the help. He had it covered, and you guys picked it up really quickly. But just a quick point to make for sure, because you know, we're pretty open and we like to know like when you're good and when we can jump in and do more hand holding if you need it. So so that's great. And then in terms of let's see where we are in the process now. So we talked a little bit about, you know, picking eScribe. So I think we get to work with you during the implementation process. We kind of see the changes evolving and you know, the feedback being shared while you're implementing. You've been implemented now for how long would you say you've been live using eScribe? Over a year for sure.
Over a
It's
year.
been,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I can see here, looks like money saved on just paper alone, almost $5,000.
Mhm.
And you said you had 4 meetings a month,
Right.
and you're saving about 15 hours.
At
Is
least,
that
and
right?
that's just in our office. I mean, I can't even, tell you how many hours are saved in other offices and other departments. In our office alone, our staff used to produce 14 paper agenda packets, and they would be put into binders, and it was a process. Our average agenda packet was between 300 to 500 pages, so that's easily a ream of paper per binder. And then, that's a box of paper when you have 14 binders. So that's a lot of paper and just resources, toner, all of that, and that we were using, in addition to just time. And our time is worth, it's more valuable than $5,000. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, and that always kind of makes us happy. Like, you know, I'm passionate about just public service in general. So hearing
Mhm.
that you have more time to just do your actual job versus just preparing packages, right? For
Right,
meetings. The
making
meetings,
copies.
the meeting is a very small part of what you actually do day to day, right? Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's the kind of where it all culminates. But you've got lots of in-betweens that you need to be doing and hats you need to be wearing, and those 15 hours I'm sure can be better spent. So we love seeing that for sure.
For
I
sure.
would say
So
that one of the things that was very, very helpful though in making the transition was the use of the LMS, the learning management system that you guys
Mhm.
provide for training. Now there's a lot of training involved in this, folks. So when you guys do come on board, there's going to be a lot of training. But
For
what
the
it
admins.
yes, for the admins, right. But
Yeah.
for the users, it's just a 1 hour video. Literally,
Mhm.
we've had many people come on board since we've implemented the
Mhm.
system, and basically it's just setting up 1 hour worth of training with them to sit in the room with someone and go over through the video. Is actually pretty informative, so you can sit through the video and learn how to do whatever you need to do. So that's been very, very helpful for us to help with the ongoing training, because you're always going to have staff that come and go,
Mhm.
and you need to make sure they're trained. And the LMS, the learning management system, is very helpful in keeping people trained.
I agree.
yeah, and a quick note on that. So some folks might be thinking, you know, I don't do well learning online or self-paced. I kind of learn better face to face. So one of the things we do is, first of all, shout out to our training team, because they are always in there kind of updating content and taking feedback from our customers to make it
Mhm.
better. Most recently, added some bookmarks so things are easier to find, you know, as reference later. But the other thing is that we do offer, workshops. So even though you're going to be learning online for your core administrator, functions in eScribe, right through pre-meeting, right to, your post-meeting, finalizing your minutes, reports, that kind of thing, we offer kind of as many workshops really privately with the training team and ourselves as you need in conjunction with that training to make sure you feel ready. So it's not like we say, hey, nice to meet you. Glad you're part of eScribe. Go train over there now for 2 months and come back when you're ready to go live. We have weekly meetings to see how you're doing in the training. Where can we help you face to face? So that's definitely something good to mention, Ron. Thanks. Sorry, you can go back to your next. There we go. So one of the things I wanted to make sure we gave you the opportunity to talk to us a little bit about is what you're actually using in eScribe, because we have a lot of different packages and modules that customers leverage. Agendas and minutes being kind of the core that customers typically you can, purchase things as, standalones, like Board Manager, for example, but typically customers are minimum using agendas and minutes functionality, but you all went far beyond that and kind of implemented a whole lot in a short period of time. So can you just walk us through kind of what you're using and just a little bit about it?
Sure. So we are using everything that's on your screen now, the report manager, the agenda process, all the way through to the minutes. We use the e-comments module, and our public, they really like that. We have some regulars who, come to every meeting and they speak at every meeting, or they send in written comment and they use it all the time. So, and we even hear, if it's not up yet. So it's something that's very, very easy to use for the end user as well. The board manager is for our boards and commissions, and we've just recently implemented that. And that really has streamlined our process as far as managing our boards and commission members, the application process, bringing all of the applications together to send them in as a report, to the council so that they can make their appointments. The whole process has been really easy. And I love the way that we have historical data on there now. So you can go back and see, people's terms, when they, the other boards that they were on. It streamlines and it puts it all together into one nice package. And it's it's very easy to use, and it's a very nice complement to all of the rest of the eScribe package that we've got. We do want to, eventually we're going to be moving towards video streaming, adding the video streaming portion. We're implementing some other things to be able to do that. And then also the online voting, or the electronic voting for our council members. So, and then we do want to introduce our boards and commissions into that as well. And they can start producing their agendas and their agenda reports and minutes in the eScribe system, so that, we're all using the same system. It looks the same. It's universal and streamlined. It's nice.
You'll also have the opportunity, once you've got your, so just to clarify for the those who join us, so they might not understand the difference between like board manager and then what they see here, introducing it to boards and commissions. So board manager is a module that we offer. So so separate from the agendas and minutes for those boards and commissions, but actually managing vacancies, like Shelley said, who your members are, what your requirements are. You can post information about the makeup of your boards and how you're meeting requirements for demographics of your boards, all kinds of things. And this here, introducing agenda manager to boards, or meeting manager to boards and commissions, is the folks who are actually responsible for compiling the agendas, publishing those out, taking the minutes, for those actual bodies themselves. And what that will allow you to do is actually refer and defer items between actual meeting bodies and meeting types once you've got that added on. So that's a whole other ball of wax that we probably haven't even talked about yet, Shelley, that you might be excited about. The other thing I wanted to touch base on really quickly, being in California especially, I think I should probably just move there, is what I've been saying, because I've worked with so many of you recently. But the public comments is a big it seems to be a popular feature in California, and I think if you're like a lot of the other customers I've worked with there, you actually have a process where you're like replacing constituents that are handing in like paper cards, right? Like
Yes.
during the meeting. So instead of doing that, you're now actually able to put that information into the system like in real time, so that you've got that captured there, right?
Right, you are able to do that. We are not currently doing that yet, but
Okay.
that is, you can set all your speakers up in a queue, so that we know, up on the screen, it'll tell you who's next to come up to the podium to speak. And so it shows a list of,
So that's
all
your
the
request to
names.
speak process.
The request to
Okay,
speak.
perfect. Okay, that's great. So we'll be working together again. So one of the things that's nice that we do here is when we go through the implementation process, we make sure that you feel comfortable We don't just cut you off like, okay, you're live with everything. Okay, on to the next department. We make sure that, you know, we flushed out any concerns or maybe just, you know, go live hiccups. Like there's a few processes we need to, you know, close the loop on, right? Before we say, okay, you're good to go. So what Shelly and Ron have done is they've been with our customer success team now for a little while. And when they're ready to implement the next phase, which is their electronic voting request to speak and rolling out to their other boards and commissions, they'll be reintroduced back to me and we'll start working together, you know, again, for however long it takes to implement. So we make sure that you're kind of wrapped around and supported. And there's no pressure to kind of go live with things you don't want to. So I think that's also important. Like your team had priorities that they wanted to go live with first. And then there was items where you said, you know what, we want some time to just get really comfortable with this and just really embrace the change and use what we're using now. And then maybe early 2024, we'll revisit some of these other things and implement those when we're ready. So we try to really tailor it to what you want to do and what makes sense for the organization. So, so that's also something worth noting for sure. Well, I think we mentioned this before. I'm not sure which one of you this is a quote from, but just speaking to, again, our customer service, being available, you know, when you need us. So one of the things we really take pride in, and I don't know if you have an example, you can maybe give us a real-time example. But one of the things we do take pride in is, you know, they're not just tickets that are open. We know there's, you know, a city clerk or board secretary or a staff member sitting behind that support queue that's like responsible to
Panicking.
the public to get this information out. And like, so we need to, you know, we need to get it done. So do you have like an example of, you know, a situation, Shelley? Maybe you don't. Hope, I mean, that's, you
I
know,
don't have one specifically, but
okay.
I do. I mean, there have been times when it's, you know, down to the wire and we are panicking and we, you know, reach out to customer service and having, you know, a little experience in the past, you know, that wasn't so positive with other companies, you're thinking, oh my gosh, please, please let me get a hold of somebody so I can get this taken care of. And it never fails. I mean, eScribe is there and they're ready to help you at any time. I mean, honestly. And I think, I mean, that was my quote, but the customer service is above and beyond. And that includes the community portal even. There's a community portal where you can go in and have, it's kind of a blog, I guess, but you can, you know, discuss issues or something that you're having with other users. And then also it's a valid resource as peers share their experiences. And their, you know, their wish list items. And we put on there, you know, hey, it would be nice if we could have this kind of function. And there's voting, and if people vote, if you get enough votes on your idea, it may be implemented into the next upgrade. And that's amazing to me that they're constantly changing their product to meet their customers' needs. So it's not just, here you go, this is what we have for you out of the box. It's constantly evolving. So
Yeah, and that's
I
a
think
good
that's
point to
really
make.
important.
It's, you know, sometimes that can be a tough transition for folks, right? Like coming to something, especially if you're coming from, you know, very manual process, you know, Word, you can do whatever you want in Word, right? Software product, you know, there are limits, you know, it's highly configurable. You've got lots of options, and that's kind of what our role is as implementation consultants, is to make sure that you're leveraging all the right features to get kind of what you want to meet your process. But, you know, if there are things that you think we can do better, we take a lot of pride in customer feedback, like you mentioned. And so there's been quite a few, and we may even be guilty in our roles sometimes when we really latch on to something a customer has shared that we even think is a great idea or
Right.
we would wish for. We kind of like push in the background going, you might want to get some people to vote on that one. We think that's a great idea. So we may be part of that too, but no, I think that's a great way to kind of describe we're also advocates, right? So part of our roles as implementation consultants and your customer success team is to really listen and put our ears to the ground and say, you know, this has come up a lot, and I think we really need to give some attention to this, and we'll start brainstorming and figuring out, you know, how it aligns with the roadmap. And obviously, we can't promise, we can't deliver on everything, but things that are popular and that really will make a difference for our customer base, or things that they take super seriously. So okay, so I think in terms of kind of what's next for us, we could talk all day, Ron, Shelley, and I. We did it before this even started. So we want to make sure that if there's anything that we didn't cover that anybody's curious about, or anything, I mean, nothing's off the table. If there's anything you want to ask, please feel free. You're really lucky to have, you know, actual end users sitting here with us today. The other thing I'd like to end with, Shelley and Ron, is if you could maybe bottle up just one thing, and maybe it's different for each of you, your favorite thing about eScribe, whether that's a feature or a feeling or whatever, what would you say that is? Your absolute favorite thing?
I don't have one, just one, but one of the items that we haven't talked about is that it's web-based. So it doesn't matter where the end user is, as long as they have internet, they can go online and you know, write a report. We have department directors who have been on vacation and literally gone in and approved their reports while they were on vacation. So it's a system that, you know, you don't get bottlenecked in waiting for someone to approve a report or upload an attachment or something like that. They can do it anywhere they have internet connection. They are able to, you know, use the process. So I love that feature.
That your staff can work on vacation. I don't know.
Yes.
They might have something to say about that, Shelley, but that's a good point to make for sure, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, I like myself. I like the workflow, how it's been automated, and it makes life so much easier. So, you know, when you've dealt with the actual manual workflow and saw and been a part of the whole bottleneck that causes, when you have a automated workflow, life is so much better. So.
And I would like to add, Tosca, if someone is on vacation, you can proxy the process. So that person that's on vacation does not have to access the system, and you can proxy it to another. You can assign it to another staff member who can go ahead and complete that function, and the process continues. So nothing gets bottlenecked.
Yeah, you can have that delegate backup approver kind of in
Yeah.
their place, go ahead and approve it and keep it moving, right?
Right.
Yeah. You also have the options, you know, you're not even bottlenecked by that. You can even move it all along as an administrator, right? If you really have to. And so we have a couple questions in the chat that I want to try to get to. A couple of them, let's see. So Pamela's asking how customer support is after business hours. So one of the things that we offer is, so there's a few different ways you can put a ticket in if you need help. So we have customers all over the world, but primarily let's just use the easiest. So we deal with, you know, Eastern time zones, Mountain Time, Pacific, even our friends out on the East Coast here in Canada, some of them are ahead of us by an hour and a half, because like, why not? And so we offer support between like our normal business hours. I believe it's 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, with extended hours to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then beyond that, it's really so you can submit a ticket like through email with like an urgent flag on it. Now, if it comes in after business hours, we would be getting to it the next business day. However, and this is being recorded, so I will be quoted on this, I'm sure. We have been known to, like, for example, if we know a customer is in a live meeting, and even though it's beyond quote unquote our normal business hours, If customers are CCing their implementation consultant or their customer success manager, there's a chance we may see that and ask our team to kind of respond, even if it might be, after hours. We can't commit to that, of course, because there are, business hours. But the other thing I would say is we really work with all of our customers to come up with contingency plans, right? Like you always, whether it's eScribe or somebody else or a manual process, having a contingency plan should be part of your, your standing operating process, no matter what. So one of the questions we often get is, well, what about a live stream? What if something happens during the meeting with our live stream? So we'll go through kind of things like best practice of making sure you're testing your live stream at least an hour before a live production event, right? You should make sure you have processes built in so that we can help you troubleshoot before the live meeting starts and you run into issues, and we can help you, not trying to help you during a live meeting, because of course you don't have time to troubleshoot during a live meeting, right? You've got to move on. So we'll even work with you on things like how would you be able to use like our pre-minutes and our, like, we have little templates that you can actually download as like emergency backups, right? If you needed to, if you had an outage or you couldn't get somebody to help you during the live meeting. So I think I went off on a bit of a tangent there. We do have set business hours and we have a service level agreement in terms of like how quickly we respond and all of that, depending on the nature of it. But we can obviously get into that in more detail as we're implementing, but you have great support with us. And I know we're always revisiting our processes around support, because, as we get more customers from all around the world, we have to make sure we're responding at all times of the day. So I know we're always looking at how we're doing that. So to date, I've been here almost 8 years. I've never heard, I haven't heard with any of the customers that I've been working with anyways, any complaints about not being able to get help when it's needed. So hopefully that helps. There's another question. Let's see. Can you talk about the usage for resolutions and councils, process to create and distribute to counselors electronically? I'm not sure I understand the question. I'm going to repeat it. Shelley, tell me if maybe you have some context you might be able to share. The usage for resolutions and councils, process to create and distribute to counselors electronically. So would this be the resolution, like the actual legislation resolution, or would this be like the voting information during the meeting, do you think?
I'm not sure what they're referring to. If it's the agenda packet is electronically distributed once we've produced the packet, and we distribute it online. And then we also email a link to our city council so that they can access it quickly. And then they also, have it available on their laptop or whatever, their iPad. As far as the usage for resolutions, I'm not sure what they're referring to.
So maybe what I'll do is elaborate a little bit on how the council or your meeting attendees or voting members get looped into eScribe. So and Shelley, this is, I think, is your next kind of phase in the product, but essentially what happens is there's two different ways you can disseminate information in eScribe. So you can disseminate information to the public via internet publishing with that button that Ron was talking about. There's also another button that is for participants, and that would be for your meeting attendees, voting members, non-voting members, and you would publish that information out to them. Now, in terms of voting, so I think the user clarified city councils vote on resolutions. So there's some terminology differences between Ontario and some of our US municipalities, which is why I was asking. I was trying to figure out if it was an Ontario question or a US question. So so resolution, so let's say vote, we'll use it as synonymous with vote. So the council will have their packages published to them prior to the meeting, whenever you're ready to do that, so they can see ahead of time, what those resolutions are going to be that they'll be voting on in that meeting. And those are automated with Report Manager. So when your staff are writing reports, if there's a recommendation coming out of that report that's going to become the resolution that they're going to vote on during the meeting, that's automated. So as a clerk, when you go to conduct that meeting, that vote is there for you waiting, that you can open that vote, and then city council, if they're logged into the app, they can cast their votes electronically. If you don't have Vote Manager or you're not ready to use it yet, like Shelly and Ron right now, Shelly would be capturing those votes electronically during the meeting, easily with a drop down, move by, seconded by, select them quickly, and then finalize the results of that vote. You can use things like public display also to display those results in your meeting chambers for people to see. So hopefully that helps. So that's part of the onboarding process, as we'll walk you kind of through how do you want council to interact, and how would you like them to vote. So that's part of it as well. I don't think there's any other questions. I did see a question about a licensing model. That's probably beyond my scope. If we had more time, I might ask Ron for more information, but I'm going to leave that question aside for now. And if anybody has any specific questions, either that one or anything else that we didn't get to today, we'll try to see if there's a way we can kind of reach out to get any other questions clarified for anyone that didn't get a chance to have theirs answered, or put a question in the chat. So I think we're going to go ahead and do a poll now. And we're going to just ask some questions about what you heard today and if any of this kind of resonates with you. If you wouldn't mind just taking a minute or two to go ahead and do that, that would be great. And it's telling me I'm not allowed to vote, so I will just wait for you all to be done. And just going to see if any other questions rolled in while we're doing that.
I will say, Tosca, that it was extremely easy to get the buy-in from like the stakeholders. They were all ready for a new process, and so you know, having worked in a difference in other cities with other products and knowing what it looks like on the other end, it was really easy to come in and kind of sell that to our staff and explain to them how much easier their job is going to be, what it's going to look like on the end. And we did have a few that were kind of like, yeah, and I'm not really sure of this change, and you know, we kind of like the way we are doing everything now. But we eventually brought them all into the light, and they love it. So it was a pretty easy buy-in, honestly, for our stakeholders. And once they saw the product and the ease, you know, and it's so easy and so intuitive to use, it was pretty easy to get the buy-in from everyone. So.
Yeah, we find sometimes, you know, people move around, right? They might leave a city, go to a new city, and it's always I think I'm actually doing it right now with another California customer. Somebody has left and gone to another California customer that I'm working with. And so now all of a sudden they're like, oh, by the way, they want us to be live with Report Manager now yesterday because they used to use it and they want us using it. I'm like, okay, well, here we go. Yeah, I mean, also we try to, you know, help with that change management however we can. If we have anecdotal, you know, advice we can offer based on what's worked for others, or connect you with somebody who's been through it already to give you some advice. I know our training department's great. They might even help you mock up some, you know, why, you know, what are you going to get out of it? What kinds of things can you show people to get them excited? So I think we're just looking to summarize, you know, kind of for everyone, because we've been chatting for a little bit now.
There's actually one outstanding question, Tosca.
Yeah.
The resolution document saying they
Yeah.
asked they just Word documents, or they're tools to help build the resolutions? In our
Ah,
case, they're we use Word documents to generate the actual resolutions part of the agenda packet.
yeah, and I think sometimes coming from other vendors, like we're kind of quasi experts in other solutions as well, because customers will often come to eScribe and tell us how they were doing it, or you know, what the transition is going to be like. So I think in some vendors, with some other products, there's like basically just form fields that you fill out that kind of build up the resolution or the agenda item. Whereas in eScribe, if you don't already have a template for those kinds of things, it gives you free range to do that. Like, so as you're implementing the new product, you're also now able to relook at, what do you want these things to look like public facing, you know, when they're part of a package? What do you want your resolutions to look like in your cover pages, agenda, staff reports, that kind of thing? So you'll basically provide us with a Word document that you want staff using as a standardized template, and we make sure we set it up and configure it so you get the automation once the agenda packet's been approved, so that council can see what they're voting on. And basically your minutes are like halfway done by the time you get into the meeting, right? Because of the information that's being pulled out from those staff reports. So
Yes.
thanks, Ron, for that. Keeping an eye on that. So end-to-end meeting platform, we often hear, you know, things being disjointed. At least, you know, now everything can be managed in one place. So you're not kind of going here for that, going here for that. Everything's together. Your meetings being more streamlined. And then you gave us some really good examples about your workload being minimized. And that was only for you, right? You didn't even really get to speak to the other departments.
Right.
So one other question. I know I'm not supposed to do this, but I'm really bad. This is why I mentioned earlier, I'm not in sales because I just like helping. There's one more question, so I'm going to answer it. Our current software meeting management vendor shut down. How long does this take to implement for a city? I knew it was coming. What did I tell you, Shelley? I said someone's going to ask how long this takes, and
You
it's
did.
the 11th hour. So really high level. Darla sent a smiley face. So that's a hard question to answer. There's so many variables to go into that. Shelley and I had talked about it before. You guys took quite a while to implement, but that wasn't really, you didn't plan for that. It wasn't an eScribe
No.
product thing. It was more just dynamics of staffing changes and things you needed to consider that happen when you're running a city, right? So not really eScribe related. Would you say that's true?
Right. Yeah, we could have easily implemented in 3 to 6 months. No problem. We did have some staffing issues. It was during COVID, at the end of COVID. So we had some, you know, people getting sick. I mean, it was just a lot of just life happened. And so it did take us 9 months to implement. But even then, I mean, you were all very understanding, and you know, it was really on our timeline, and you weren't like pushing like, no, we have to get this implemented in, you know, 3 months. That's what we said we were going to do, and it's going to happen. You know, it just, you allowed for life to happen, and it did. And but you could easily get this done in 3 to 6 months. No problem. And everything is so streamlined. I'm sorry, Tosca. Everything is so streamlined. You have it all laid out for us. So all we do is really go in and fill in the blanks in a lot of the templates for you to set up the back end of it and set up the software so that it's, you know, personalized for that city. And so it made the process really easy.
I would also say quickly to our friend Darla who asked the question, is that we're pretty creative. So I mean, it depends. Like I wouldn't say a responsible thing to do would be to implement every feature and module that we have in 30 days or less, because you're going to make people's heads spin off. But I would say if there's things that are a priority and you need a contingency plan, right? You have no solution now. You need to be able to easily get your agendas and minutes captured and published. That is something we can work with you to be super creative and do pretty, I would say in 30 to 60 days, to be honest,
Yeah, I
as
would
long
say
as
for
you've got
sure.
the time to do it, and we'll make the time to get you there. So, but we're always very creative. And I would say, if you do get the opportunity to talk to a salesperson, if you are interested, they will give you scenarios and ways that we try to make people move along as quickly as possible. So thank you for that question.
So as a note too,
Yeah.
Darla's dilemma right now, I would just leave you folks out there with this little tidbit to think about. When you're out there looking for a vendor to implement a solution, like I said, price is always a consideration, but you always have to think about the fact that if things are super cheap, there might be a reason. So you got to be really careful when you finally make a decision to choose a vendor, in that why is that vendor so cheap? Is it because, you know, I don't know, they're really good and they like to give their stuff away? Or, you know, are they teetering on bankruptcy? I mean, it's really hard to know nowadays how financially stable a company actually is, because in the finance market, a lot of these tech companies are now merely just assets in a portfolio held by some type of investment company. So you really, I've been in this business a long time, and I've seen a lot of change. And one of the biggest changes I've seen is the fact that a lot of IT companies now are just merely small parts of a large portfolio held by these companies who, on a whim, will just sell or close that. So just be very careful when you're out there choosing a vendor. You know, do your homework. That's just my little bit of advice to you.
Yeah, that's true. And I do want to add to that. So if they have a system that they've already been working with and their vendor is, you know, going out of business or whatever, you've already got the bones already put together. So to implement that into eScribe is going to be just that much faster, because you've already got it set up. You just need to change it to eScribe. So it'll just streamline your process.
Yeah, and I would just let the sale just on a I mean a quick note to help navigate the system. If you are in a situation where, I mean, I am working with a couple customers now that started with eScribe maybe 3 months ago, and they're prepping for go live, and they've just got a notice from their current vendor. We're not allowed to mention names, that they're like end of life. And they're kind of panicking, and we're saying, don't panic, ask for your data. It's yours. They have to give it to you, and either host it, you know, separately on your webpage somewhere else, or we can even look at doing a data migration where we can actually take the information, migrate it into like a public facing data migration. Not always doable if it's a super fast turnaround, but the thing I would say is mention to your salesperson, if you start talking with them, what the situation is, how quickly you need to be out. And our sales guys are great. Whole sales team, women, men, they will reach out to us and say, hey, we've got a customer who's in this situation. Can we get an implementation consultant to sit down in a meeting and chat with us with this customer? Because they don't want to make promises if they can't do it. So they'll really make an effort to make sure we understand what you're looking for and what kind of situation that you're in, so we can try to help you out. So just let them know if you do have a situation like that, so that they can make sure they, you know, can give you as much guidance as possible. One other thing, we did have a mention from somebody in our audience. Thank you very much for letting us know. Probably wouldn't do well on a checker, an accessibility check here. The link that we have for our web address is blending in with our background, so we apologize for that. It is eScribemeetings.com. There's also a QR code there that can be scanned. And so please go ahead and do that. And we apologize. We'll make sure we get that updated for sure. So I think with that, I mean, I'm kind of sad we're done, because I always love talking to Rhonda and Shelly. But I think that's it for today. And from our marketing team, did anybody want to mention anything, like what's next? Will there be any communications going out after or away for folks to reach out and ask any questions that maybe they didn't have an opportunity to ask while we were here today? Or we'll just use the email address if so.
There should be some communications just in case there's anything else they want to learn, but happy to answer any questions if they want to reach out via email or contact us on our website.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Ron and Shelly, for your time today. And I know I'm going to think of a million things that I wish I'd asked and chatted with you about to show you off. But thank you so much for your time. And for everybody out there, hopefully we get to cross paths, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Take care.